All right, we're gonna go over the brain divisions and we're gonna do an overview of their functions. So again, when we look at the brain divisions, we have the cerebrum, the cerebellum. When you turn it over, inside you can see the diencephalon, and the cerebellum you can still see, and the brain stem. So technically you can see all regions of the divisions on the inside, or the internal view versus the lateral view. Cerebrum, cerebellum, diencephalon, and brainstem. On the outside you can only see portions of it. Cerebrum and cerebellum, if you turned it anteriorly and you had it looking at it this way, you could see the cerebrum and the brainstem and then the cerebellum on either side, but you have to open it up literally to see the diencephalon. Now, as far as the division overview, I'm going to just basically give you a summary of what we're going to be covering, but you're going to have to know the structures involved with it. So the first thing, when we talk about the cerebrum, it is the largest. The cerebrum is the largest. This is going to have all of your higher mental functions that we talked about. Higher mental functions include personality, learning language, emotions. All of these are going to be found within the cerebrum. Okay, it's also going to interpret all sensory stimuli. Now, when we say sensory stimuli, we're talking about the sensory neurons. Sensory stimuli is going to be general senses and special senses. It has to go to the cerebrum in order to see, to have vision. So that's a special sense, but it also is going to help you with general senses. Now, it also is going to plan and initiate movements. So the way we plan and initiate movements is we have to send motor impulses away from the CNS, so motor neurons leave, so that we can make muscles contract. Now, your cerebellum is going to monitor and coordinate complex motor movements. I will be going into more detail on that. Basically, wherever your hand is in space, you could close your eyes and turn your hand over in this action. Like if you close your eyes, you know where your hand is in space. That's what the cerebellum does. It basically monitors where your hand is even with your eyes closed. Now, your diencephalon is going to be responsible for processing and relaying sensory neurons to the cerebellum. It's also going to maintain homeostasis, which is equilibrium in the body. And it's also going to regulate biological rhythms like sleeping. So we're going to learn all the structures that do these things. And then the brainstem also is going to help with maintaining homeostasis. Different kinds of homeostasis, like heart rate and your breathing rate. These are the main systems in the brainstem, but it also is going to relay information as well. Now, when I say relays information, it's relaying sensory and motor information up and down. So, when we talk about the cerebrum, information has to travel up your spinal cord and get to your cerebrum, to the appropriate area. So of course the brainstem is going to be a sensory and motor relay. Sensory is going to have to travel up to the brain and motor is going to have to travel down. So when you touch a hot stove, it goes from your hand, up your arm, to the spinal cord, up the brainstem, and then it has to go to be processed, which is going to happen here. Now, motor information, when you are touching a hot stove, you have to move it. So it leaves from the cerebrum, motor information comes down, and then you move your hand from the hot stove. So when we talk about relaying information, we're talking about relaying sensory information going up and motor information coming down. So I always, again, use the safety pin cycle to describe sensory and motor information because it's always going to be called ascending. Ascending information up, well, motor neurons have to travel down, and they have to travel up and down through the brainstem. That's what we mean by a relay of information. Now, when we say higher mental functions, again, that is personality, that's learning, that's emotion, that's language, anything that's reasoning, higher mental functions is going to be within the cerebrum. So those are the divisions. When we go through each division, you're going to learn more names of each structure, and that is basically going to summarize what you're learning in each division. So last time to go through this before we start the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest, cerebellum, your brainstem, and your diencephalon. So this is just an overview so that you can kind of see what we're getting into.